Hi guys, welcome to the very first episode of The Usual Place for 2026. Now today we're going to be talking about the job market, and when it comes to the job market in Singapore, we keep hearing phrases like measured hiring sentiment, uncertain economic climate, and selective employers. But what does that all mean? Now, if your New Year's resolution is to get a new job or at least update your resume, today's episode might help you figure out whether this is the year to move or wait it out until you get a clearest idea of how the job market is doing. Now, I don't have a crystal ball to tell me what's happening, but I have two experts on The Usual Place today who have looked at the data and numbers of hiring trends. Now, joining me today on the couch, I have Stella Roosley, who is LinkedIn's career expert, who advises job seekers on career matters based on trends in the hiring and job market. And also Joyce Bell, Business Development Director for Asia Pacific and the Middle East for the Manpower Group. And this is a global company that deals with workforce solutions from the hiring process to dealing with redundancy. So that's the A to Z of like the workforce, right?
Indeed.
Yeah, so thank you both for being here. And I want to start off with looking back at 2025. It was kind of a difficult year in the job market. There were global uncertainties like, the American tariffs and AI adoption causing like businesses to be cautious about hiring. Then we also heard about struggles, on the ground. The university graduates in Singapore were like taking a while to lock in permanent jobs as well. And however, unemployment remained low, kind of. It was like about 2% in June 2025. Now that we're in a new year, I guess the big question is the job market going to be better or worse? Okay, Joyce, let's start with you. What's your take?
Yeah, I think we still need to be a bit cautious. Although the GDP numbers are going up, it doesn't always say that the hiring outlook is exactly the same. So I would say cautious still. There's still a lot of global uncertainty as well. And that makes that companies are not hiring that much yet. They're very strategic in their decisions. They're not just hiring to expand, but they're hiring for specific skills or needs.
You talked about global uncertainties. Could you tell me more about like what we could see happen or what's causing the uncertainties?
Yeah, I think it's more on the cost part as well. We are very conscious. Then we have, of course, the part we might touch a bit in detail AI as well. But with that, if there's a lot of uncertainties, there are not a lot of new full-time jobs. We do see on the contracting side that things are moving a little bit, which is exciting, of course. And if people, especially the fresh graduates, are a little bit more flexible, they might can opt for a part-time job or a contract job to learn about what's going on in companies, building up their skills, potentially opening as well new doors. And we see as well that often they might get converted into a new job.
Okay, so I want to get back. I'll get back to the bit about contracts versus permanent jobs, but I want to hear from Stella as well. Do you agree with what Joyce is saying about like the overall market outlook?
Yeah, I think from what I'm hearing from both of you, uncertainty, right? A lot of what people are feeling is actually the uncertainty. And then that in turn makes everybody cautious. But I wouldn't say that the hiring has stopped completely. Again, agreeing with what you have said, that it's just getting more selective. So companies are actually still hiring for several roles. Actually, from the data that we see on LinkedIn, for example, companies are looking at AI roles. Like AI is everywhere in the news, right? So our latest Jobs on the Rise data actually show that companies are looking at AI engineers, and they're hiring for machine learning researcher, or even they're hiring for head of AI. Like not just in AI companies, but normal companies, they are also looking to implement AI, and they need people who have expertise in the field, and that's why they are hiring head of AI. But apart from that, there is also a growing demand for roles that are more human-centric. Basically, those roles that AI cannot replace, that you still need like trust, care and judgment. Think about roles like guidance counselors, for example, or even teachers, because these roles still need the human interaction, and that's something that AI cannot replace.
Okay, so we're looking at this in broad, we're discussing it right now in like broad strokes for now. So I think that's a very good like indication of what people can just be cautious going into if you're looking for a new job. But Joyce, what you said was interesting to me because about permanent roles versus like contract roles, right? So are you saying that, for example, fresh grads will perhaps find it harder to find permanent jobs and maybe, I don't want to say settle, but maybe they should look at contract roles as an option as well?
I think they should be a bit more flexible in their first job. And that can be also maybe an extra traineeship to really get experience and not only what you learned at school, but how can you apply this in a job. And companies these days are looking for somebody that brings value. So how quickly can somebody bring value? So if you have your job interview and you have done some traineeships or projects, contract jobs, you can refer to that.
Yeah. Stella, when I'm on LinkedIn, I see people share their experience and traineeships and internships come up. And I actually spoke to someone who, said, I did like 4 or 5 internships, or that some of the experiences that people are sharing on social media. But it's still difficult to, get a job as in even your first job. Is this like the new norm where people might just have to just be super flexible with what they want?
Well, it's not only the quantity, I think, it's the quality, right? Are you doing an internship just for being in an organization? Or is there actually a project where you can learn something that you might can transfer in a new job? So I think that is a difference by how it's not about how many you have done, but what did you actually learn and how can you apply that? I think that is a bit to your point what you raised earlier. What are companies looking for is, can you implement the human touch in a job? So that's something you can learn through a traineeship, through a contract job.
I actually like what you say about, it's not just about the numbers, because you really shouldn't treat job search like a volume game.
Yeah.
On the other hand, you should be a lot more targeted, understand what it is that you are good at, like the problems that you can solve, and also understand from the roles that you are looking at, what are some of the skills that they require, and then you build on those skills. So another thing is also to rely on your network more.
Yeah.
So, even as fresh grads, from your internships or from the projects that you have done, case studies, right, for example, those networks that you build are actually the ones who probably will be able to give you the opportunities, because, you just tend to get a lot more opportunities when you're visible and more connected.
Yeah.
And I like what you say, that you see on LinkedIn that people are sharing a lot more, right, about their internships, their experiences. And those are really good because that can really show employers or companies what is it that you can actually do, instead of just saying that, hey, I have this skill. But by putting it across, giving a little bit more concrete examples, a little bit more storytelling to it, people know that, hey, this new grad has actually done this in the university, and they probably can contribute meaningfully to the company.
So what I'm hearing you say is pick up the phone and start calling people and just asking them to help you, or like reach out online to say like, hey.
Yeah, I think a big part of that is also, don't, like you said, pick up the phone. But if somebody you really don't know, they won't pick up your phone, right? Or
DMs, slide into their DMs on LinkedIn.
Slide into their DMs on LinkedIn. But also, don't wait until you really urgently need a job.
Yeah.
So maybe for somebody in university, don't wait until
you
the last
graduate,
moment, until you are graduating, before you actually start thinking about what you want to do. Or even like people in the mid-career professionals, right? Don't wait. So always just be ready. Just have your network warm. Keep building the skills into the roles that you want to do, and also make sure that your story is coherent, that your profile is updated, because that's how you get discovered.
So in terms of trends, is there any like particular job trends we will see this year?
I just want to add one more thing,
of course.
if you don't mind, because I think it's a very good point what she raised there. Don't be shy as well. If you're doing a traineeship, before you're leaving, ask the person as well, like, hey, in the future, can I go back to you? Would you be able to help me? And I think too often, especially when you're still at the beginning of the journey, you might be a bit shy to ask this. And if you want to stand out, actually, ask the question. Or if they potentially don't want to help you, ask them what the reason would be. Like, what can I improve to do better in the next time?
Okay. I'm hearing you. Be proactive.
Yeah.
You can't just wait for the job to like land in your lap, right?
Not at the moment.
Okay. Yeah, it's so competitive out there. Would you all say that the job scene in Singapore is quite competitive?
It is, yeah.
It is, and I think the competitiveness, or like, the tight job market, can come from two parts, right? Like job seekers, like we were mentioning, perhaps people are a little bit more hesitant to move. They want to move, but they are probably building options at the site.
Yeah.
But then for companies as well, right? Because you know how AI is changing hiring process, people using AI to write their resume, write their cover letter. And if it's not used very thoughtfully, all applications can read the same. And then all these companies just start getting like massive volumes of applications. But they're actually saying that it's getting more difficult to find qualified talent. So it's really about, again, back to being targeted when you apply, making sure that you show what you can do instead of just mass applying everywhere.
Okay, so I want to talk about Singapore's economy because it actually did better than last year. And MTI upgraded its full forecast for GDP growth to around 4% in 2025.
Yeah.
And for this year, the GDP growth, I believe, is projected to come in at between 1 to 3%. Can job seekers be optimistic about what's to come based on the numbers?
Yeah, that's a bit what we discussed earlier, right? If I look, so we just published our Manpower Outlook survey for Q1 2026, and that was 15%, which is actually the lowest since 2022. And that's why I said I would be a bit cautious. Again, it's not that there is no hiring, and I repeat myself a little bit maybe now, but it's really on the target, the skills they're looking for, and not just expansion at the moment.
Yeah. So do you agree with Joyce?
Yeah. So it's really about building the skills that employers currently want. Again, probably similar to the data that you have, what companies are currently looking at. AI is one thing, but again, those skills that require this human interaction, this human touch, your care, judgment, just keep sharpening those skills, to be a lot more successful this year.
Okay, so is there a particular moment where we should move? Like, can we tell? There's no we in this. I'm not looking for a new job. I think, okay, let's not get it. I will be here for a while. But for people who are people who are looking to make a move, is there a particular time, like in the calendar, where they can tell, like, this is the right time to apply for a job?
I think that's very personal, honestly. I'm also not looking for a job.
Everybody's not looking for a job.
But just for the record.
Yeah. So when you are, if someone's looking to change a job, look, when someone wants to change jobs, is there like certain factors that they should consider before, like, versus like rage quitting or like, because the market's not great we're cautious about it. But is there a moment where people should consider like moving on in their career?
I mean, there are signals, if the market has opened up a little bit more. Like, again, market has not stopped hiring. It's just more cautious, right? But there are some signals, like, for example, if you go on LinkedIn and you see like more roles are being posted in your function, for example, or when you apply, recruiters come back faster, or recruiters are reaching out to you. These are basically like signals that you can pick up whether the market has become a little bit less tight, I would say.
Yeah.
Okay.
But again, don't wait for a perfect moment to apply. Back to where I said don't wait until you really need a job to start looking, right? Just keep your network warm around and start talking to people, have some chats with people, because they might be able to guide you to opportunities.
True. And I think as well, it's not for all jobs and all industries the same, right? Because when we do those surveys on a quarterly base, it doesn't mean that none of the industries are hiring. If we look, for example, in banking, insurance, we still see a growth that is predicted. It's more on the front end jobs, though, and again, where human skills are more important. But there are jobs, and that's why I said conscious. We don't want to be too negative. It's just. As mentioned, we don't have the glass and ball yet where we are heading to, but
Okay. Well, I'm glad you brought up banking and insurance, which is still hiring, because it's this notion of like there's some hot jobs in the industry, in the job market, right? I mean, there used to be hot jobs like in tech, and this was like for me, I started working in the 2010s. Telling my age now, but when I started out at the Straits Times, so there's some hot jobs were like working at Facebook or in Netflix, and even working for startups. But then in the past couple of years, tech companies have been like and laying off staff. I mean, it's not even just tech companies, but jobs in like hot areas, like maybe like computer science. You read like in the US, computer science graduates like have a hard time finding jobs.
Yeah.
How can employees, especially fresh graduates, kind of like future-proof their careers if they're going for like hot jobs per se? Joyce is like, okay.
Maybe we shouldn't chase hot jobs, right? Because it's proven they come and go.
Yeah.
But we should focus on skills, transferable skills. And I think you mentioned a few already. The adaptability, communication, how do you collaborate together? Focus on the skills that you can transfer across those hot areas. I think then you're better off than just chasing.
I mean, because I've heard people say, I want to work for company A, I want to work for company B because it's like great on my resume.
Yeah.
Or, it's like, it's this prestigious thing that you aspire to.
Hot jobs are coming and going as it's proven now.
Yeah, and I think just to add on to what you mentioned a couple of conversations earlier is about being more open to the types of roles that you can take. But it's really like future-proofing your career is about staying relevant, right, in the current market, even as the market changes. So there are actually a couple of things that you can do now to future-proof it. First, of course, understand what skills are in demand right now in the market and just build on those skills.
How do you tell? How do you tell what skills are in demand?
So maybe if you see some job openings in the roles, they will normally in the job descriptions, they will say like, preferably you have skills in this, and this. So those can give you some clues as to what skills what gaps you actually have in your skills to be able to land those roles. But also again, talking to the people in the industry. I keep repeating myself, but network. Network is very important because network is not just about, of course, reference letter is important and stuff, but it's about understanding what the industry actually entails, what that particular role actually demands, and understanding that can really give you some clues as to like maybe some courses that you can take or some extra projects that you can take on the side to build those skills. But also it's about keeping your profile updated, be it your resume or your LinkedIn profile, right? The profile itself should show what it is that you can do. When you put your experience on your LinkedIn or even in your resume, don't just list down your duties. I did this, but actually explain how those duties translate into outcome or impact. That companies then can understand what skills you actually bring to the table.
So I want to talk a bit about AI because it has come up a bit earlier. And, AI has been touted as a massive disruptor of jobs. I think people are worried about whether AI will actually come for our jobs. And it's adding to the challenge of finding a job that they may want, right? Firstly, I need to know, like, how is AI going to come for my job on a day-to-day basis? Like, are we able to break it down? I mean, many people have different jobs and everything, but how will AI come for our jobs on a day-to-day basis if it's possible to quantify it that way?
I mean, I do get why people feel anxious right now, right? All the news you're hearing, AI this, and it feels like it's changing so fast. But I think a more helpful way to think about how AI is changing is that our job is a series, is a bundle of tasks. Like you as a podcast host, you're not just about, sitting here writing script and talking, right? There are a lot of things that are involved in the background. And AI may be able to do some of those tasks, but they're not going to replace whole jobs overnight. Again, as somebody, I'm not very highly technical, but for most people, you don't have to be highly technical to be able to benefit from AI or use AI in your work. But it is getting more important right now to learn how to use it every single day, to just see what sort of tasks that you can offload from, like, a little bit more of the boring tasks or the repetitive tasks, and then double down on the skills that AI cannot replace, which is us talking here.
Well, so then I have to ask, like, how can we become human workers that cannot be replaced by AI? Is there an answer to that?
I don't have a direct answer, but it comes back a bit to the skills we discussed earlier, right? Analytics. How do we read the data? Is it correct, or does it make sense. How do we collaborate still? That is something that AI can't do for us. How do we communicate with each other? So to what you earlier mentioned, your job, but also the teaching jobs, etc. There are so many roles that will keep continuing. And for the jobs where we can use it, we have to see it as something that helps us to make us more efficient instead of worrying. I think we need to be worrying if you're not willing to adapt to it, because then you fall behind.
So you're saying that if I just want to do my job as is or as a year ago instead of adapting and incorporating AI into my job, then I'm going to be in trouble.
But these developments we have had for years, right? It just goes very fast now, and I think that's what causes a lot of anxious. But back in the old days, right, when we started to use a computer, people adopted as well. When I started my career in the recruitment industry, people came with their CV to my office, right? And we had an interview. I wrote down the notes, and when client calls, I went back to my files, like, hey, Natasha, actually, that's a good one for this job. If we keep on doing that, we wouldn't sit here today, right? So I think over the years, we have had a lot of developments. The thing that makes it more maybe challenging is that we can't grab where we are heading to. And the changes are so fast that it's difficult for us to keep up. But maybe even the education system is challenged to keep up with the new way of working.
Yeah, I think for a lot of people and for myself even, it's too fast. Like so every other day there's like a new update and I'm like, guys, I'm still learning now. I'm just like, can we not move so fast? But I do agree with you. It's kind of like we don't know where it ends, right? Or like what will come next. But yeah, Stella, what's your take with the whole AI situation?
Yeah, I think, like you said, things are moving so fast, right?
Yeah.
But the response to it shouldn't be shying away from it.
No.
But dabble around with it, again, play around with what it can and cannot do. Because it's really about understanding what AI will change, but what AI will not. But also, after you have experimented a little bit more, see how AI can offload those boring tasks, more repetitive tasks, and then let your human strengths come through a bit more.
So human strengths like
relationship building, communication.
It's like communication.
Your charming personality, because this is what makes this podcast. Yeah. Like for example, this is what makes this podcast like enjoyable to listen to, right? It's part of your personality that comes through in this, and that's what AI cannot replace. And I really like the example that you gave about the, sifting through resumes, paper resumes and stuff. Like for example, for my role currently, like I'm also an editor at LinkedIn, and some part of my job is writing, right? Writing itself can be probably done by AI. They probably can write a bit better than me. Hopefully not. But yes. But there are other parts of my job, for example, where I need to conduct workshops for students or speak to people or build sources, speak to members, right? Members won't talk to an AI, but they will talk to a warm person who will actually be curious about what is it that they're looking for or understand how LinkedIn can benefit them, for example. These are conversations that you can only have as a person.
So I have to ask but these are jobs which require a lot of face-to-face interaction, but there are jobs which are like highly technical and now AI can do it. So if I'm in that kind of industry, like should I just pivot to something that's more like human-centered?
I think we get, as we call it, new-collar jobs, right? Where you have a combination of the technical skill and more the human part, where it used to be very classified, right? Like only IT or technical or HR or data analytics. I think you see much more that it's now a combination. So even for the people that are very technical, I think they need to upskill themselves. Like, hey, it's not only about the technique, but it's as well on the soft skills, right? What do you do with it?
Yeah.
So I think it's, we call it new-collar jobs. We used to have the old-fashioned blue, white collar, and this will be a combination between both.
Yeah.
And I think
No, go ahead.
And I think even in a very highly technical roles, human judgment still matters there.
100%.
AI may be able to sift through the data, but actually interpreting those data, what that data means, whether it is actually a good set of data, you still need humans behind to make that judgment.
Yeah.
And then
see whether it's accurate and real.
or whether it makes sense.
Whether it makes sense. Big thing to look at when you use like AI models and stuff.
Yeah,
but
exactly.
Joyce, you brought up the keyword of one of the keywords of the job market, which is upskilling. Upskilling I feel like it's a very Singaporean thing because I've been told that we need to upskill all the time. And, actually recently at the end of 2025, a lot of Singaporeans scrambled, to use their, the one-off $500 Skills Future credit top-up, right? It expired on December 31st. So too bad if you didn't use it. It's over. But, what kind of upskilling should we actually look at, if we want to move jobs or if we want to like get a pay raise in our company? And it's like, okay, I did this course. Can I get a pay raise or should I move? Like, yeah.
Okay, so to do a step back, right? I don't think it's only in Singapore, and it's more survival, right? To go back to the earlier discussion, like, hey, we have been upskilling ourselves, but we have now a terminology for it, I guess. But yeah, I think here is again, it's not about the certificate only. In my opinion, you should have this conversation with a manager. For example, I want to do this certificate. If I do this, is there an opportunity to work on additional projects, for example? Because again, it's not about how many certificates do you have. How can you use the skills you learn? And can you use them directly? Because if you sit down and wait a little bit and not doing anything with it, you're not going to use it in a new job because you don't have the experience. But also it will be very difficult actually to negotiate potentially that new salary that you have in mind. I see you're laughing.
I'm laughing because I have to tell you that I did use my Skills Future for a pasta making class. So I guess I can't tell my boss to give me
I want to ask, how did it improve your career?
Maybe you can cook for him and then...
I have to bring like fresh pasta to the office now and like tell everybody like to grade me and like give me feedback. Does this
We
work?
should have done this here, right?
It was employee morale, guys. That was what I was doing, like colleague morale, like helping them with like fresh pasta and like, yeah. But so what I'm hearing you say, Joyce, is that it was completely useless. I mean,
I don't know. I don't know how you use your skill, your new skill.
That's the only class that I've taken so far. And I mean, I thought it was a great personal development for me. Like, I can
At
cook
the end,
for
you need to have fun as well, right?
Yes.
Yeah, I had a lot of fun, but did it help my job? No, it did not. It did not help this job, but I can go work in a pasta restaurant, I guess, but in an Italian restaurant. But yeah, I mean, going back to the types of skills that we should look at. So I think a lot of people are kind of overwhelmed because there's so many options when it comes to like choosing what to do. So do you have any advice of like how to choose where to start upskilling with? Like, should I go for the AI thing or should I like take an MBA? Like, what do you have advice for people who are looking to upskill?
I think it really depends on what is it that you want from your career. So with a lot of things changing, market being more cautious, right? It's really about clarity with yourself as well.
Yeah.
So maybe sit down, have a think. Where do you want your career to go? What kind of roles do you want? Whether you want to be pasta connoisseur or something, right? But so the type of skills that you need to or you can upskill to really depends on what you want really or the career direction you want to go, and of course also about understanding yourself, right? What skills I currently have now, what problems I can solve, but also where the gap is with the skills that are actually in demand in the market right now. So, I mean, everybody's talking about AI. I mean, there's no harm just taking a course, understanding that, again, coming back to learning what AI can and cannot do, and then help you then figure out the next skills that you want to build. I normally like to think of this like a skill stack. So for example, in my current role in your current role, if I'm a journalist, for example, then I have my core skill sets already, right? And then how is it that I can incrementally improve myself, build around those skills? Like maybe if I want to use AI, I can learn how to use AI to make my job better, to make how I do my job better. And then being able to tell that story to employers at the end of the day is also important, right? Say, why is it the combination of my journalism skills and AI, for example, will give me an advantage as a job seeker?
So I have to ask, like, for example, because earlier we mentioned like fresh grads, but if like, for example, I'm a mid-career employee, soon to turn 40 and I'm going for training. Like realistically, how will this help me change my career trajectory? Like, because after all of Singapore has the same access to all these courses. So, I mean, how do I really like stand out if I'm going to upskill? Joyce?
Well, I think it's really about the growth mindset, right? Over the years, we need to keep on skilling ourselves. Otherwise, at one point, we are staggered and we can't move on, right? So I don't have a direct advice on what you should choose. But I do think, especially here in Singapore, there's a lot of availability. There are great courses. A lot is online. It's actually very reasonable priced as well. So I would say just give it a try. And you mentioned that earlier as well. You can see in job advertisements what are the skills, the must skills they're looking for. So if you would like to pivot toward that direction, why not to start with the course? Actually learn as well if it is some skill that is actually suitable for you, that you enjoy doing and can bring you to the next step in the career.
Or maybe we can keep it a bit tangible. Like for example, in your industry, like for someone who's in the HR industry, like what can you like see them doing if they want to like upskill?
I think that comes back to the basic AI as well, because we get so many CVs that are all the same. So how are you going to differentiate, right? Who is really the right person for the right job? And that's a difficult one, right? But that is, I think, if I look into skills like, hey, how can we judge actually what this person has been doing? And does that bring value to the company we want to put them forward to?
Is there a specific course you would recommend? I mean, I know this is like highly specific, but I feel like I'm looking at someone in HR because, as you said, with AI can kind of like sieve through all the CVs kind of thing. And
there's not one I would directly recommend, to be frank, or that pops up directly, but it can be in a very wide range, right? And it can be in leadership skills, like, hey, how can you support somebody to do this slightly different and that they're ready for an interview? And what you're doing actually is a lot of helping, I guess, as well. Like, hey, how can I jump out, or how can I be more visible? So it would be more in that direction, I would say. But I don't have one that I directly say, like, oh, you should do this one.
Yeah, no, I think it's like highly personal as well. Like when you have 100%. To look at your skill sets and see like, okay, what is the gap between the next level and what I have now?
Where am I today? Yeah. And where do I want to go?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So from your perspective with...
Yeah, it's interesting you mentioned about, switching careers, mid-careers, because I've actually done it myself. My background was actually in the finance industry, and then I actually pivot out to become a journalist and, being in the news industry as an editor, and then finally landing my current role here. Because if you see career pivots, it's really about making these small changes at the side. Yeah. So, for example, at that time when I was still in banking, I knew I wanted to become a journalist, right? Then I figure out, okay.
But why? I mean, right. I think it's a great job. I love coming to work every day. But why did you want to be a journalist?
I think I actually stumbled upon it by accident. I love badminton, so I did badminton journalism. Like, I really just wanted to watch a lot of these tournaments, and then I figured out a magazine wanted a writer, somebody who reported on the match. So I just like, okay, I'll try. And then I actually loved it so much. But that's also become a key on how I could pivot my career, right? Mm-hmm. So when I switched from finance to become a journalist, my first stint was actually being a financial journalist. Oh. Why? Because I have the skills and the knowledge in finance, right? And then building up from the skill stack, I figured out, okay, I need to take on more projects in journalism, building up my portfolio. And then in the end, I decided to take a plunge and take masters in journalism. But it's mainly that understanding the gaps that I still have, and then also using the skills that I currently have, the transferable skills I currently have, to make it my advantage. Like, hey, I've actually been in the financial industry, and now I have journalism skills, and this is why I'll be a great financial journalist, for example. So short answer to this long story is that, for mid-career professionals, right, it's really about showing your ability to bring impact. So whether you can make an impact in such a short time, and then whether you have those transferable skills.
Yeah, I mean, in your case, you did, because you knew the sector, the banking sector quite well, and then you could translate it into...
And basically being able to tell that story, right? To say that, hey, this is the advantage I have, I'm adaptable. to switch over to this current industry. So, and also I think again back to those being open, like if you maybe you can also be as a mid-career professional, you can be more open to roles that are adjacent. Like not every roles need to be a promotion when you want to move. For example, if you want to switch industry, perhaps you can move across at the same level, and then that could probably open doors to a lot more opportunities.
Yeah, that's an interesting one. I think maybe might not be on the minds of like a lot of people, like because they always think they want to move up, but actually you can like kind of look for similar roles. Not similar, but as you said, adjacent roles.
Adjacent roles. Yeah.
Well, thanks for sharing that story, Sala. But I want to ask you guys, in recent years, there have been viral job terms, like quiet quitting. Everyone knows it now. I mean, last year I think it was job hugging. What do you think will be the word of the year for 2026 in the job market? Any guesses? Oh, this is a time to make history, guys. You can
quiet cracking.
So quiet cracking. What is this?
We have I think all the things have something in similar, right? And this is how engaged employees actually are, which is potentially concern, but let's not dive into that. But with the job hacking, people are looking for security, right? They are not moving because they are uncertain what is happening in the market. So they stay where they are, but they are not really engaged anymore. And still going to the job where you are not fully engaged is actually taking its toll on mental health. So hence the
quiet cracking.
Yeah.
That's interesting. Stella, agree? Or do you have a phrase on
something
top
more
of your mind?
positive?
Yeah, no, it's a bit like that.
Okay, let me start with something more positive first then. I think if there was a word that I would say 2026 is, or at least what I hope to see, is skills proof instead of just skills claims. So what this means is that instead of saying that you have the skills, show people how you can actually do the work.
Yeah.
So back to your point earlier, as a recruiter, you are receiving so many applications, right? So the bar is actually getting higher for you to stand out. So that's what job seekers need to do now, showing what is it that you can do the work, tell your story well, and keep your real life, like your examples, your real voice front and center. Because otherwise, like you said, all job applications start to sound the same. How are you gonna differentiate between one candidate versus another, right? So that's really about like being able to prove that in your application. But also back to the job hugging trend. Like I said, people are really trying to stay put in the jobs right now, and probably they're building options at the side as well. So maybe they're having a look what's out there in the market, but not actually jumping into the make the jump.
Yeah.
But what companies can do, instead of like catching these people, like maybe they're not so engaged, instead of catching them, maybe try and have better conversations, better career conversations with them. Tell them, hey, these are the skills that you can build while you're still in this company, or if they no longer want to do the current role, are there any other opportunities that exist internally? It's really about helping them grow within the company as well, because job hugging isn't about like people being lazy, right? It's really a response to the current uncertain environment.
100%, yeah.
I guess I'll have to ask my boss if I can make pasta on Fridays.
I'm sure your colleagues will be happy.
Well, on that note, thank you both for being here and for your insight on the job market. And that's it from The Usual Place today. Now, if you're watching us on YouTube, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell so that you won't miss the next episode. And if you have thoughts on what we discussed today, do drop a comment on YouTube or talk to me on Instagram at The Usual Place Podcast. I'll see you next week on Thursday at noon.